Hi, I'm John Martins, owner of Discount African Hunts. One question I get from my clients quite a bit is who I should tip and how much I should tip. I'm going to try to give you a general guide here to give you some direction on figuring out who and how much you should tip when you're on a safari in Africa. Tipping is customary but discretionary. It's based on your experience in Africa. Most places you're going to go, they're going to make every effort to make your safari as enjoyable as possible, but your experience should have some effect on the amount that you tip. If your safari has been exceptional, you should tip a little bit more. Obviously, if it's been a disaster, whoever contributed to the disaster should not receive a tip. But in general, most of the staff is going to make every effort to make your safari the safari of a lifetime. Again, the two main questions are who should I tip and how much should I tip them. I'm going to give you a general range based on the overall value of safari, typically 10 to 15%. And there's going to maybe be a difference in how much you tip your professional hunter on a dangerous game hunt versus a plains game hunt. Again, the range would be 10 to 15% of the total value of the safari. As far as breaking down the tips, generally you'll have a professional hunter, you'll have a tracker, a skinner. Sometimes the tracker and skinner will be the same person, and then you have the remainder of the camp staff. The people that clean your room or your tent, the cook, the people that help serve the food in the kitchen, and just general staff. A lot of times an outfitter will have ground maintenance, just keeping the place looking neat. It's difficult to determine who and how much you should tip, and I'm going to try to give you a little bit of guidance here. At some point, some of the staff should be salaried by the outfitter. So I really think you need to look at the people that have a direct influence on your safari. If you break these down in groups, it's the professional hunter, again the tracker and skinner, and then the remainder of the camp staff. So to give you some advice, and on a plains game hunt, the professional hunter, if I work off a 15% total tip, I like to give the professional hunter 10%. He's the guy that had the most influence on the success of my safari. The tracker, on a 7-day hunt, a lot of times I'm going to give him $150 to $200. On a 10-day hunt, $200 to $250. An outfitter told me a while back that the tracker has not received a raise in the last 20 years. Americans have been giving him a $100 bill ever since they started coming here, and he's still getting the same amount. So I've increased my tips up to about $150 on a 7-day hunt and $200 on a 10-day hunt for the tracker. Now the skinner may be the tracker, so that's kind of combined. But if I've got a guy that's skinning a bunch of trophies for me, I'm probably going to stop in the skinning shed and give him $100. Now, if there's 4 or 5 guys in the skinning shed, then you kind of got an issue there, and I'm going to talk about something you can do in lieu of tipping him directly a little bit later. As far as the remainder of the camp staff goes, again, you have the cook and their assistants and the people that clean your tent. Now, like I said, you have groundskeepers, you've got a lot of other people, but I like to keep it to the people that directly affect your safari. So a good way to figure this out is to directly tip your PH. And again, if it's dangerous game hunt, I'm going to give him a little bit more because he's risking his life to get you that trophy of a lifetime. The tracker, sometimes I'm going to put the money directly in his hand, but before I do that, I'm going to talk to either my professional hunter or my outfitter and find out if they want me to do that or they want me to leave it at the office. Many times in Africa, you'll give the tracker a tip and he's headed straight for the bar, and he's not available for the next client for 2 to 3 days and leaves the outfitter in a pinch. So this is one case when you really should be talking to your outfitter about how they want you to tip the rest of the staff. But I would always tip the professional hunter directly. Now for the remainder of the staff, I like to leave my tip in the office to be distributed. There's always the issue of trust when somebody else is receiving your money. I like to put it in their hand directly, but I like to talk to the outfitter first about how he'd like me to handle that. So one of the keys here is before you go on safari, talk to your outfitter and ask him. Ask him for a recommended tipping schedule. So, some outfitters are going to go over the top and want you to overly compensate their staff. So when you look at their recommended tipping guide, if they've got you tipping everybody on the planet, obviously you're going to have to figure out what to do differently. And I think this guide will give you a little bit of help. If you leave the money at the office, there's always the matter of trust from the staff and the outfitter about did they get all their money. So in general, it's best to put the money in one person's hand, but it's difficult to figure out how to distribute money to 10 different people. So again, I like to leave it in the professional hunter's hand, the tracker's hand, if they tell me I can directly tip that tracker, and then leave a tip at the office to be distributed among the rest of the staff. I'm going to give you a few situations you may run into in Africa. You go to an outfitter and it's your checkout day and there's 15 people lined up outside your door. That's why you need to talk to your outfitter ahead of time to see what the normal procedure is there for tipping, and avoid getting caught in an uncomfortable situation where you have a lot of hands in front of you and you only got a limited amount of money that you brought based on what your anticipated value of the package was. Another situation you may find yourself in is booking a dangerous game hunt in a country like Zimbabwe, but you booked through a South African professional hunter. Now you need a Zimbabwe professional hunter involved in the hunt to be legal. So you've got two PHs. You shoot a great buffalo, you shoot some plains game. Now, who do you tip and how much? Do you have to double the tip for the PHs because they're both there during your hunt? Or do you split the tip? It's a situation you may find yourself in, and only can you really make the determination. If you shot the trophy of a lifetime, maybe you tip them both what you normally would tip one guy. But if it's just been a good safari and you shot a nice animal, I think you split the tip and you talk to them and tell them, look, this is how much I planned on tipping. I'm going to split it between you two guys. Then let them squabble it out if they're not happy with your decision. Another situation you may find yourself in is you go to an off-site farm to hunt a certain animal and they load the local helper on there, and now you got another guy. So I usually slip them $10 or $20 if we've shot something great and they've helped everybody load the animal on the truck, just to kind of grease the wheels of Africa and keep everything moving. One additional situation is a guy brings two trackers. They've got one sitting around camp, so they bring him along. Now you got two trackers. If you got two trackers for your whole hunt, how do you distribute the tip? Do you need to give double the money, or do you split the tip? Again, that's not an easy situation. You're going to have to do it based on how those guys performed and how much money you got budgeted for tips. Now, another situation, should I tip the owner? Typically, unless the owner is your professional hunter, you don't need to leave him a tip. If he's got his act together, making his money off the overall safari, not directly off your tip. So to summarize, the best way to proceed is to talk to your outfitter ahead of time and get some guidance on what their expected tipping procedure and policies are. Obviously, they want you to tip their staff as much as you can. And again, tipping is customary but discretionary. Base your tip on your overall experience. Don't be a cheapskate. Don't be a millionaire. But this really helps these people survive in Africa. And in the vast majority of the cases, they're going to make their best effort to give you the safari of a lifetime. I hope this helps a little bit. And we look forward to seeing you in Africa on safari.